Hey y'all, it's Mamaw, and it's Sunday morning coffee time with Mamaw. Wait till we get a few people on here. I hope y'all can hear me. All right, we got people hopping on now. And we have lots and lots to cover today. Imagine that. Lord, that taco's throwing all kinds of spaghetti on the wall. He's just seeing what he can do to keep us distracted from the main goals that we have. But we're not going to let him. We're going to stand tall and stay tough. All right, need to get a few more viewers on here before we get started. Hope you've all had a good weekend so far and your football playoffs have gone the way you wanted. I know here at Ohio State, whoa, I don't even think they showed up for the game. But that's what you get. Okay, I got a couple jumping on here. Carol's in Walla Walla, Washington. Good morning. Christy from New Mexico. Good morning to you, Christy. Josephine, good morning to you. Joan Henry from Western Pennsylvania. Good morning. Toby Sharp from Kentucky. I hope you watched my Blue Dot podcast appearance. That was really fun. They do a great job over there. I wish we had a chair of our Democratic Party in Ohio like you do in Kentucky, I'll tell you. Let's see who else we got. Darcy from Illinois. Yes, we do have lots to talk about. Linda in Looneyville, West Virginia. Good morning, Linda. I'm glad you're back. Good morning, Jennifer, to you too. Josephine from Virginia. Good morning. Margaret from the UK. Golly, Neds, thanks a bunch for hopping on. Robin from Arkansas. I know you're a little blue dot in a red ocean. Joe from Pennsylvania. Rose from Montana. Good morning. Kathy from Virginia. Susan from Wisconsin. Debbie from Massachusetts. Let's see. Kathy Muncie, good morning to you too. Nia from Miamisburg, Ohio. Celeste Grace from Montana. Now we're hopping on there. There we go. So we've got them all hopping on here good now. Carol, good morning to you from Ohio. Tony from Columbus. Let's see. Catherine from Maine. Ooh, you're having a chilly morning. Now, good morning, Beanie. Toby Sharp. Okay. And then we got Leslie from Michigan. Now, I got to tell you all about something really strange where I'm at in Ohio. I looked out this morning and it was really bright, and there's this great big ball in the sky, and it's warm and it's bright. I don't know what it is, but man, it's nice to have that out there and have everything all lit up. It's just an interesting phenomenon. Donna from Oklahoma City, good morning to you too. Okay. Good morning, Jackie. How are you? Carolyn from Metro Detroit, good morning to you too. Okay. Oh, Judy from Port Dover, Ontario. Love our Canadian cousins. Please, please do not hold the taco against us. We are not like the taco. Okay. So, we got a good start here. I'm going to get started with my usual fare. Let me get on up here because, oh Lord, we got a lot to cover. And I'll get to your questions in a little bit. First of all, I want to thank Jeremy Barker with Obscure Mics. Excuse me, I have this weather, my nose is running a little bit. And Brenda Aubrey with Artsy Aubrey. She has my merch. I do want to tell you she's refreshing my merch for springtime. So check in periodically. There'll be new items. So I think you'll like it. I want to thank Sassy, my brains of the operation, and my BFF Carmel, who helps me out immensely with taking on all this stuff. So I want to make sure I always thank those folks. So, I've gotten a lot of messages, as you can imagine, throughout yesterday. So, I need to explain a few things. I know that there's a lot of other content creators who were almost on the entire day, and that's great. I will never besmirch another content creator that's out there trying to keep you informed. A lot of them really throw the F bombs and were out there early on, but then it seems like some of the things they were saying were not accurate. It's easy because I used to be, and some of you that watch worked with me at the uranium enrichment facility, and I was in environmental safety and health. And what everybody found was it's real easy for people to come in and tell you what's wrong and then walk off. I have made it my mission with this project of Mamaw's Porch and Politics. I not only want to tell you what's wrong, I want to tell you why it's wrong. That's why I always read my Constitution and how it's supposed to be, and then what we can do to make it right. Because if you can't tell someone why something's wrong and then how they can correct it, it kind of defeats the purpose. It's real easy to run around and yell and scream and have your hair on fire, but I want you to feel empowered that you can do something. So I know sometimes my content may be boring, but knowledge is power, and I'm trying to share the knowledge. And some of this stuff, you can't dress it up. I can't do my humor. I can't do my sarcasm. Sometimes it's boring, but it's stuff we need to know so that we can go out and fight misinformation. People that are so wrapped up in the MAGA cult that they don't know which end's up. I can tell you which end I think is up, but that's all beside the point. I can be salty, as y'all know, but I'm trying to give you accurate information, and sometimes that takes time because I research, I read, I check my resources. So if I'm not on there early, if I'm not on there constantly, it's because I'm checking to make sure that the information I'm about to give you is good, accurate information, or the best information that's out there at the time. Um, I can be sarcastic, and I intend to be sarcastic. Again, sometimes I post stuff and people come back and I'm like, honey, it's a joke. Bless your hearts. Um, and then I'll put something up there and people say, well, that was dated such and such. Well, I know that. That's what I wanted you to see is the irony that that person posted or said. I posted a thing about Pete Hegseth, what he said a few years ago. Things that they post or say just a few years ago and how they've done a complete 180. That's the whole intent. I want you to see that these people go where their bread's buttered. It's not that they truly believe what's coming out their mouth. Um, I think most of you agree that knew your grandparents, that your grandparents are who taught you a lot. Your parents are busy rearing you, they're busy out there trying to make a living, get you raised, but you learn from your grandparents. And that's why on Mamaw's Porch, I want to be the one that helps you learn why we can be empowered, why we can fix things, why we can correct things. So just hang in there with me. Um, Now, some of the things that we can do. We can call our congressmen and senators. And I know you think I sound like a broken record and, oh, what good does it do? It actually does a lot of good. There are international studies that the best way to turn the tide in these fascist regimes or dictatorships are peaceful protesting. Don't ever give them an excuse. Don't ever give them an excuse. But when they see the vast numbers, and it's kind of like that snowball effect. When people look out and see a bunch of people, they tend to want to join, be with the cool kids. That's what happened with the MAGA movement back in 2016. Remember all the dumbass parades with the trucks and the MAGA flags and people on every corner holding up their signs and all these huge rallies? Well, hell, everybody sat back and thought, oh my God, there's more of them than there are of us. No, they were just louder. They just got up in your face, and we went and got in the corner because we were polite. We didn't want to argue. We didn't want to talk about religion or politics. And now we know that was the wrong stance to take. So when you protest, it matters. It does good. Even if you're just sitting in your yard with a sign, even if you just put signs in your yard. The other thing that really works is contacting and calling your congressmen and senators, or even at the state level. And I'll tell you why. They log those calls, and they know they've got an election coming up in 2026. And if the vast majority of calls that they're getting from their constituents is against their stance, it's like, Taco, I got to get reelected, and my votes are public, and what I say is public, and I'm going to go with the voters. It does work. Even if you have to do it every day, a couple of times a day, it works. Now, I can't post every congressman and senator's phone number online. I was asked to do some for several other states. So what I did is I posted on there the main switchboard number. You tell them where you're from or where you're at. They'll either transfer you to where you need to be, or they will take the message and transfer it. And a little script you can use, or, paraphrase it, put it in your own words, but I'm just trying to help you out. Call them every day and use that. And then call back and tell them that this is for Speaker Johnson. Because even though he represents a district in Louisiana, as Speaker of the House, he has to listen to all of us. So then you leave a message for Speaker Johnson to the tune of, do your damn job, call it into order, and start having hearings on this. For some reason, little Mikey Johnson thinks he can just, usurp, give away his powers, give away Congress's authority, and hey, everything Taco's doing's okay with me, so here you do it. That's not how it works. There are no provisions in the Constitution that says you can give your power to another branch. We have 3 branches of government: the executive, the judicial, and the legislative. The legislative branch has just clocked out, and they need to start legislating again. And part of their legislation is oversight and the purse strings. And Mikey Johnson needs to get out of it, because I'm telling you, what a lot of people are not aware is if something happens to the Taco, or God forbid J.D. Vance, the second person in line to the presidency is the Speaker of the House. The next person after that is 92-year-old Chuck Grassley as President Pro Tem of the Senate. Yeah, we don't need that. So if, God forbid, J.D. Vance invokes the 25th, and by that press conference yesterday, I think that's going to be sooner than later, Mikey Johnson will be the next in line. So he needs to get his act together. This is absolutely ridiculous. We need to start working for congressmen and senators that we like, that we believe in their message, that we want to do something with, and start working to get them elected. We have got to really turn this Congress. We need to make a resounding statement so that the Taco and his cabinet realize this is not what we want to do. We are not going to become a Venezuela. We are going to hold hearings. We're going to hold people accountable. And we're going to have a Congress that will tighten up the War Powers Act, that will tighten up our voting rights, and get some other legislation done that makes the lives better for us, the people. So that's me on my high horse this morning. So the things I want us to look at is, I want you, if you have a streaming service and can get it for free, to watch the movie Wag the Dog. Because that's exactly what all of this was about. The kitchen's getting too hot for Taco, so he did this thing in Venezuela because guess what? That's all we're talking about. We aren't talking about Epstein files or the Jack Smith report. We're not talking about the economy. We're not talking about equity. All we're talking about is Venezuela. We can't do that. We can multitask. Hell, most of us watching here are women, and we're used to multitasking. All can be focused on. They've got different congressional committees that can focus on every one of those steps. And that's what we have really got to do, because we cannot lose focus on the economy, equity, and Epstein. And under equity falls Jack Smith's investigation, because we have someone in the White House who may have put a price tag on the highly classified documents that Judge Eileen Cannon won't release or won't let Jack Smith talk about. And that's frightening, because while everybody thought the Taco was doing something for them, he is solely in there for the enrichment of him, his family, and his buddies. This whole thing about the Venezuelan oil, the oil platforms, I talked a little bit about yesterday, and you can go on there and look. All that was we got in that country and we started taking advantage of those people, and they federalized the drilling. Taco's buddy said, hey, while you're at it, why don't you go get our oil platforms back? Well, if they do that, that's going to mess over the Permian Basin that we have. It's also very expensive to drill in Venezuela. It has to do with the soil. I'm not a geologist. And it's also a really heavy crude, so it has to be processed differently. In fact, the smart move would be to make refineries down there so they could process their own crude, because it gums up ours. So it's not that he's going to take over those platforms and you're going to see a difference in the price of fuel here in the very short term. That's not going to happen. He wants you to think it's going to happen, just like he wants you to think that he put these tariffs on other countries, and all of a sudden these companies were going to come back and bring all these jobs back to the U.S. Well, they're not going to do that, because hell, they knew that the consumer was going to pay those tariffs. Nobody else was. It still doesn't cost them any more to manufacture. It costs them more to bring it into this country, but they're passing it on to the consumer, so it's a zero-sum game. Anybody in the 6th grade could figure that out, but I don't think the Taco's education extended much past the 3rd grade. If you watch that broadcast yesterday of his speech, he couldn't even mumble out kind of simple words. I mean, he looked like he was stoned as hell. I don't know if they're giving him mushrooms in the morning or what, but evidently his cognitive defective memory medicine hadn't kicked in yet, and it's only good for a couple of hours. He was in pretty bad shape yesterday. So we need to make sure that we get public hearings on Jack Smith and Eileen Cannon. Now, you can't haul a judge in there, but what the Congress can do is recommend to the judicial courts, the appellate courts, that she be censured, that she be disciplined, and because she is a federal appointee, she can be impeached. And I think that's where we're at, because she thinks she is the personal protector of Taco. So down in Florida, that's why he likes to stay in Florida, You had Blondie Pam Bondi, the protector of pedophiles, protecting him when she was the attorney general in Florida, and now she thinks her job as the U.S. attorney general is to solely be the coverer of his ass. And Eileen Cannon thinks her sole purpose on the bench is to hide up, cover up, and obstruct justice for the taco. So I think those are two items that really need to be looked at. Um, so that's all I had for this morning. We'll go see what y'all thought. Linktree, my Linktree's been put up there, so anything that you want to find or any contact information will be on that Linktree. You just click on it. When we're done, I will post a couple of things at the end there so you can find it and just go click on it. So go back and read comments if you're not reading them while it's going. And we will get to some questions now, if I can read. So be patient while I scroll through these and read, because this ain't easy. And I have watched others who do lives, and it's not easy for them either, so I feel better. I'm not the only one that has to scroll through. Susan King said that the owners were paid $637 million for their platforms after they were naturalized. Yeah, I figure there needs to be a lot looked at there. Teresa said, I don't think this administration has a sixth grade mentality unless you count the smear campaigns and trolling as middle school mentality. Yeah, and then we also know that the taco likes middle schoolers. Yeah. Uh, Wendy Allen says, I'm fearful for our troops. I do know that they have alerted our National Guardsmen that they may be deployed. Listen, nation building doesn't work. You look at Vietnam, what it took to get out of there, and we ended up just having to pull out in a hurry. It was a mess. And that is a smaller country with a smaller population, and we had 500,000 troops over there. Now, in contrast, keep in mind, China helped prop up North Vietnam. A lot of people don't realize that. China was neck deep in that. China was in Venezuela the day before we went in and got Maduro. So I imagine if we want to get in there and get too hairy, we're going to have a proxy war with China. We've also now greenlit China to go after Taiwan. I don't know who's advising the taco, but Marco Rubio is a sorry little, I'll say shit instead of what I really wanted to say. He's all out about Cuba, and the reason he's all out about Venezuela propping Cuba up is his family was pretty wealthy when they were in Cuba, and they think they got little Marco in there, and so they'll get their Cuban wealth back. Cuba, before Castro, was the playground of the rich and wealthy, and just like we're seeing here, the rich were extremely wealthy. The U.S. was in there taking advantage of everything. We had a lot of gang corruption because the mafia was down there with the gambling. When it took over and people fled, they lost their wealth because the whole thing was federal. Well, I'll call it federalized, but it was a communist regime, so they took everything back for the state. Marco thinks he's going to get his family wealth back. And then he thinks we're all going to pat him on the back and he's going to ascend to the throne in 2028. Marco, your career is over. You have kissed the ass when you bent the knee, and your career is over. You need to be aware of it. You need to hear this. I hope somebody tells him. You have ruined your career, and you're still a young man, for Donald Trump and his family's enrichment. So you keep that in mind. And your family's not going to get jack crap out of Cuba. So that was my say on that. So, where was I? How many people were killed in Venezuela? A lot have been killed, but the one thing you got to keep in mind is on the lead up to that, we murdered 115 people in those boats that we don't know if they were or were not carrying drugs. We'll never know. I don't know if we don't know. And drug running and drug dealing and drug manufacturing are not capital offenses. So why are we executing drug dealers or mules or drug runners? It's not a capital offense. It's not anything we would execute someone for anyway. And yet we did. We have got to have hearings on that because this just ain't passing the smell test. Now, for those of you that didn't listen to yesterday, how we got it done was we had a warrant from 2020. It was sought in 2019 when Taco was still in office, but the warrant was signed in 2020. Joe Biden wasn't about to go in and do this, but it was sitting there, so if Maduro was ever out of office, we would get him. When Hernandez was in office in Honduras, how we got him was they eventually ousted him from office, and as soon as he was, the DEA contacted the Honduran police with our international warrant, and they arrested him and then extradited him to the U.S. When we got El Chapo, we got into a joint operation with the Colombian government and police. He was arrested and then extradited to the United States. Now, Noriega, we did extract, but that's just it. We went in, again, with a warrant, and we extracted him, and then we were done. We didn't do anything else in Panama. But what we did here was this big lead up. We stole oil tankers. We blew boats up. We killed 115 people leading into it. And the problematic thing is now Taco says we're going to go in and nation build. We're going to take over that country. Well, they've got a vice president. They had an election where another person was elected. So that's not our concern. They've got to figure it out on their own. We can, help them out a little bit on the side. But to go in and nation build, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. My God, we were in Afghanistan 20-some years, and that's after Russia tried being in Afghanistan 20-some years. And the bottom line is they're still in the same shape they were in when we went in there. In Iraq, if we wanted Saddam, go in, get him, get out. Same with Afghanistan. We got into that quagmire in Afghanistan just to find out Osama bin Laden was in Pakistan, and all we needed to do is go get bin Laden and get out and never have been in this war. I want you all to remember the lies we were told to get us into Iraq. Let me refresh your memories. If you will remember Dick Cheney and Colin Powell sitting there telling everybody about these weapons of mass destruction, and at least they went to the United Nations, and we were going in because Saddam Hussein had these weapons of mass destruction, and we got in there, we did all this crap. There were no weapons of mass destruction. You just had a dictator, a very cruel SOB, but you just had a dictator in there. And then we had to nation build, and we pumped in billions and billions and billions of dollars. There was corruption like you wouldn't believe. We allowed Halliburton, a contractor, to become uber wealthy because they got all the bid contracts for feeding, for moving logistics, for doing everything, for propping up people, for putting people to work. Remember all of the contractors for security that did things? Y'all need to remember all that. Do we want to do that in Venezuela? I don't think so. And that's where we're headed. That's why Congress needs to have these hearings, and the answer is not only no, but hell no. I'll get off my high horse. That's just how I feel about it. So let me get back to some of your questions. Beverly Steinberg said she's in Hillsborough County, Florida, and I was 100% correct about Blondie Pambondi, the protector of pedophiles, and that just jumped. I apologize. So I couldn't read that. Joel Morse says he's just Oh my gosh, I wish this would quit jumping. Okay. World War II, aren't they concerned about will be no better than Russia? As of this point, Taco has learned well from his mentor, Vladimir Putin. I don't understand why he's okay with what Pootie Poo's doing in Ukraine, but got all butthurt about Maduro. The other thing I heard was Representative Luna got caught lying on TV last night talking about fentanyl, and we stopped a fentanyl float. There was no fentanyl coming out of Venezuela. That comes out of China. It's synthetic. It's not grown and processed. Yeah, they'll even lie to cover up for tacos lies. Okay, now if I can get this to stop jumping here for a minute. Whoops. So I'm trying to get these read. Okay, Marco's on TV now, more lies. And it keeps changing. I mean, good Lord, how many different reasons for going into Venezuela? He just keeps changing his story. He's done. They are a bunch of hypocrites. Yes, that was a good one. Carolyn says, and what about Korea? Well, you know, he loves Kim Jong Un. Well, my God, look what he's done to his people and how he's diverted money. And we've got them just salivating over Japan, including Guam, where we have U.S. troops. Uh, the fiction they sold us regarding weapons of mass destruction was pure fiction. Yes, it absolutely was. Uh, yes, so I'm glad. Ty Marsh says, there goes your universal health care. So now we need to get back and focus on things. Like I said, Taco's throwing spaghetti on the wall. We're not talking about the economy. Well, part of that is those of you that are on the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, just saw a huge jump in your premiums. A lot of people are just saying, I can't afford it. I'm not going to do it. So let's talk about health care a second. Prior to 1970, early 1970s, 73-ish, we had health care insurance in this country. And it was not for profit. It was just you pay into this insurance, you go out, and we're not making profit. We're not being part of people's 401k plans so that you can do it. And our job is not to tell you no, it's to help you get health care. You pay into it, you get health care because we negotiate lower rates with places. So that's how health care used to be. We didn't have these kind of problems, and you could take your kids in and get them taken care of. Then in the 1970s, somebody got the bright idea, well, we can make money on hospitals. So we can make for-profit hospitals, even though they look like they're not for profit. And we can make money on this health care. Then in the 1980s, when we started this whole IRA deal, and let me make this crystal clear. When we started these retirement plans, all that was is so those little snot-nosed shits on Wall Street and people could, like Kenneth Lay, could start companies like Enron that were scams so that they could play with your money. One of the candidates for governor of Ohio, Vivek Ramaswamy, scammed the California Teachers Fund by investing into a drug he knew did not pass the first 4 trials. They invested heavily in it, and it bombed. So all of that happened in the early 80s. So we started these IRA programs. You had to save for your own retirement, and that's when insurance companies were like, hey, we'll get people to invest in us. We'll be really profitable. And how they became profitable was by telling you no, and by charging you premiums that you couldn't afford, and by not covering people that had pre-existing conditions. So y'all that aren't old enough, but those of us that are, we need to remind people of that. And that's where they're trying to head. That's bull crap. And I apologize right here and now on national, international internet. Senator Sanders, I was wrong about you. I apologize. You are absolutely right. We were lied to with all the commercials they hit us with. Single payer systems work. Everyone else is happy with their single payer system. Anyone working is paying into Social Security and Medicare anyway. We all need to be paying in to a single payer system, Medicare for all, and Medicare needs to be allowed to negotiate drug prices and also negotiate care prices and end this stranglehold of big insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. People in the United States pay 5 times and more in medication costs than our neighbors to the north, our neighbors to the south, and our neighbors in Europe, and our friends down in Australia for the exact same medications from the exact same pharmaceutical companies. So you need to think about that. Why is that? Well, part of it is they advertise medications. Well, heck, we can't write those prescriptions. What the hell do we need to turn on TV and see that for? Exactly. So the billions of dollars they spend in advertising could lower costs, and the billions of dollars they spend lining the pockets of our congressional people and our senators and our governors can be kept and not be lining pockets. So there's huge savings right there. That's what we need to do. Oh my gosh, Mary Oswalt said her daughter's health care insurance went up to $2,000 a month. Oh my God, nobody can do that. Uh, Nia Lynch says, I worry that other countries will say enough and World War III will start here on our soil. I don't know if it'll start on our soil, but that is we have destabilized the world because of that fool. And we have lost any of our moral authority. We can no longer tell people, no, you have to stay out of there because we won't stay out of there. Taco destroyed the White House and doesn't stay there. Yeah. Uh, don't even get me started on what he's done to the White House. What a lot of you may not be aware, I've said it on several of my podcasts and drops, but all the big buildings in D.C. have these great big old tarps drop down, these banners with Taco's face and what he's done. He's trying to put his name on as much as he can. It's just like if you travel to any third world dictator run country where the great leader's face is plastered everywhere. That's what he's doing in DC. It's just nauseating. It's not the people's city anymore. He's trying to make it Tacoville. I think he wants to change the name of it to Washington, D.T. instead of Washington, D.C. Yes, Lynn Richards. She said she's afraid Russia and China are mad and they're going to come after us. I really think if he does intend to invade and hold Venezuela, we will be in a proxy war. Here's the other problem with Venezuela. We'll go back to Venezuela. I know I'm jumping around this morning, but there's so much. I had someone yesterday say, yeah, but the people of Venezuela are happy. Well, some are. 60% of this country does not like the taco, but because of gerrymandering, we won't get into that, we got the taco. But 60%, he has never broken, now he's in the low 30s, so we could even say 70%. We don't like the taco. But if a foreign country came onto our soil and kidnapped him, dethroned him, and then said, we're going to inhabit your country for a regime change, as bad as the taco is, we wouldn't like it. That's number one. Number two, Venezuela still has a standing army, just like we have a standing army. So that's problematic. And number three, While 60% doesn't like the taco, 40% adore the man. The same in Venezuela. While the majority don't like Maduro and he was voted out of office and refused to leave, kind of like what happened on January 6th, 2021, there are people that adore Maduro. There are people that did vote for Maduro. So they're not going to welcome us with open arms and say, oh, come take it over and make us all better again. It's going to be like what happened in Iraq. There were people that liked what Saddam Hussein did because they were in power and they lived comfortably. They had a standing army that we had to go in and fight. This is not going to be a walk in the park. My God, we're not even talking about distant history, Taco. You lived through that. So, yes. Now, Darla, are you talking about Iran or Iraq? Because in Iran, it was the Shah until the theocracy took over, and we've had all those Ayatollahs, starting with Ayatollah Khomeini. So in Iran, we had installed a Shah, and then he had to get out of there. In Iraq, we had installed a president, and then he turned out to be corrupt. And the same with Afghanistan. When Afghanistan started falling, the president that we put in Afghanistan hightailed it out of there with billions of dollars from the U.S. Just saying. We put somebody in corrupt. Luann says either Taco or Elon is the third Antichrist. Both could be true. Okay. Julia Ferdinand says that he has destabilized the world. He certainly has. Lynn Richards says we will continue to see boats that are sanctioned with court orders, and we will continue to potentially do other things until we need to see their address. Because ultimately, above everyone, this part of what Rubio said, they are not done bombing and killing. I know, it just makes me sick. Another question I got was that when we went into Venezuela, our troops followed illegal orders. No, they didn't, and I want to make that very clear. Because we had a warrant and we were going in as part of law enforcement, just like we did Noriega and that kind of thing, it's razor thin. They're walking on a razor's edge. That part was not an illegal order. The bombing of the boats was. The murdering of those 115 people was. Potentially the shelling of Caracas was. But as far as what those troops did, was not. And like I said, we're putting those people in a horrible, horrible situation. It wouldn't be so bad if we had a Congress that they knew would back them up. But right now we don't, because Mikey Johnson likes to tuck tail, go run into a corner, get out his cat of nine tails, and flog himself because the taco might be mean to him. That dude needs to come out a speaker. Marjorie, that's what you need to do tomorrow. Your last act needs to be to oust his ass. Robin Solis says Taco is a wannabe dictator. Oh, he doesn't even make any bones about it. It's just so far the roadblocks have held. Let's see. Let me keep getting in here. Teresa Dash says, in our opinion regarding his governing, if we can call it governing, has been disregarded from the beginning. He has said during the campaign that as long as he got into office, we were not going to have to worry about anything. We were not going to ever have to worry, and as God is my witness, that is exactly what he's doing. His people were so gullible to believe what he was saying these things and getting a reaction. He shows you he's a snake. Absolutely. You remember the parable. Why are you killing me, said the rabbit when he got a ride on the alligator's back. And he said, because I'm an alligator. Taco is only worried about Taco and enriching his family and his friends. In the year that he has been into office, that man has grown his wealth by $3 billion. God knows what the sale of these pardons has garnered him and his family. He gets Jared Kushner in all of these deals. I mean, it is any other family. My God, we were worried about Hunter Biden's laptop, for God's sakes. Look at this stuff. And nobody says a word. Let me get on back up here. Let's see. Let me get on up here. I'm trying, people. It's just really hard to scroll this. And it did it again. Uh, yes, Taco, what he's saying about Tim Walz. You got to understand, his little butt hurt thin skin, he's got to go get even with everybody. He can't let things go. Good Lord, Melania, how'd you live with him? He can't let anything go. And it's not that he can't let it go, he's got to get even. And so Tim Walz's big crime was running as the running mate of Harris. That was his crime. What they supposedly have covered with Somalis, well, they've already found out this so called reporter is just an operative. He's just a podcaster like I am. And he's going in purposely on hours when they're not open. But they interviewed one woman who said she kept the doors locked and made all the children be quiet because she was scared to death he might have a gun, which is a reasonable fear. Now, is there corruption? Well, hell yes, there's corruption in every state. And I'd say you'd find there's more corruption in red states than blue states. But, they're cutting Taco in on the money, so it's okay. Let me go on through here. Yes, Cindy, I agree that Taco is a walking corpse. He is really, for somebody that says that all it is extra aspirin and stuff, that dude's in bad shape. And I understand that his doctors are bound by the HIPAA oath, but that means you don't have to tell anybody what his condition is. That doesn't mean you get to stand there in front of everybody and lie about what his condition is. The only person in the world whose condition that we have a right to know is the president's. We have every right to know what the president's physical and mental conditions are because he does have the nuclear codes and he has not surrounded himself by better angels in this administration. We have a right to know his health. Just like every other president who has been there, we knew about their health issues. Okay, Christy Nome wants to demolish 17 buildings. Oh, yes, and the arch. I'm really looking that we're going to have the arch and the Lincoln Memorial's going to have a statue of the Taco because he's done more than Lincoln did. Folks, he ain't done, but you know what? As soon as we get a Congress in there, first thing they can do the first day is take a vote to have all that shit removed, and there's not a damn thing he can do about it. So it won't last long. Yeah, I want to talk about Taco's texting. Because sometimes when he texts, he uses good grammar and full sentences, and sometimes he doesn't. And I know he's doing the voice to text, but I have a suspicion he got old Stevie Miller in there doing some stuff for him under his name, too. Because old Stevie Miller, the real shadow president, the one who keeps propping him up, the one who's got his hand run up Taco's ass moving his mouth. If J.D. Vance gets in office, Stevie Miller is toast. And by the way, if this doesn't frighten you, the little spawn of Satan himself is going to have a fourth child with his wife, which I think's kind of funny since she ran off last year with Elon Musk and just recently came back. Just saying. Just saying. And it's a fact. I'm not spreading gossip. That's all a fact. Taco wants to be buried in Arlington. Yeah, we can do him ass up and we can use his ass for a bicycle stand. Okay. Shauna, actually, he wasn't formally diagnosed. They knew he was stumbling and having trouble, and the last year he was in there, and they treated him for flu and stuff. They may not have completely diagnosed him with Alzheimer's when he left. We know Nancy was running things, but I will give you that. So, yeah, they weren't really forthcoming with the shape that Reagan was in. But think about it, people. Even Ronald Reagan could stick to a script and sell it off. He was not in the shape that Taco's in. And I'm telling you, I ain't believing for a minute that Taco doesn't have congestive heart failure. They know it, and they're trying to cover it the best they can. Okay. Well, let me see. We're coming up on the 1 hour. The ketamine ran out. Cindy, something happened. Cindy says his ketamine ran out. Or maybe he's learned how to enjoy the shrooms with Elon. You know, Elon was down at Mar-a-Lago, too. Katie Miller is posting Greenland draped in American flag. Oh, I, his fascination with Greenland and Canada is mind blowing. Greenland is not up for grabs. It's just not. And there again, I want you to use that tool on Google and take Greenland, because the maps that we have in schools aren't accurate, and superimpose it over the United States. Greenland's big, and it's really hostile climate wise and terrain wise. Taco, get over yourself. Yes, Maria says he's just like Saddam Hussein with monuments and plastering pictures of himself everywhere. He sure is. All righty, now, can the Hague arrest Taco? No. I mean, plain and simple. You have to have an organization do it. You have to have the country that has them willing to arrest them and then turn them over to the Hague for international crimes. But the Hague has no authority to arrest. And keep in mind, the United States has always maintained ultimate veto power with the Hague. That's why we've had other people in office. One of them was Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney could not travel internationally in the later years because of what happened with Iraq. So, Hitler Jr. Natalie, I'm glad you brought that up. So, Wednesday, I will be posting the first in my series to subscribers, where I'm doing the correlation between what's happening now and how we're doing it now and what happened in Weimar, Germany. It's going to be 4 parts. I've got the first 3 done, so I'll start with episode 1 to my subscribers on Wednesday. It'll come in an email. Sassy will be posting again a form. Now, this is only if you haven't already filled that form out. Fill out the form if you are a subscriber, and I will be emailing you these links. That's one of the perks of being a subscriber in 2026. At the last day of the month, well, I think in January, we're going to do it on the 30th, but at the end of every month, I will also email a link to my subscribers for our Zoom meeting. We had one. It was a lot of fun last week. It was really good to get to see your faces and just to have a conversation instead of me having to catch scrolling and stuff. We had a lot of fun. So we will do that again every month. So those are 2 perks for my subscribers. But when you brought up Hitler, that's my first series. So it's a 4-part series on how we're alike, how we're different, what our guardrails are. But I'm going to end it on a good note of things that we can do to make sure that doesn't happen here. Kim says, reading comments while it's going, we were multitasking. I know, God love it. And I'm really glad y'all understand I'm trying to multitask. Yes, Donna Harvey, Stevie Miller is the shadow president. And remember, they're implementing VOE's Project 2025, where we had a little festival booth where I live. And one of the things we had up was a banner that said, Stop Project 2025. We had a woman get nasty and say, take that down. That's not true. You're spreading lies. absolutely would not believe that this document existed and that this framework existed, this blueprint for taking over existed. And now it's like, oh, yeah, that's Project 2025. Nothing we can do about it now. Oh, yes, there is. Yes, Phyllis says having repeated cognitive tests, they know he has dementia. Yes, and you know, okay, he can still tell animals apart. I don't think he can pass anything else. Okay, Carmel, what movie? She said he watched the movie. Oh, Wag the Dog? Yeah, probably so. Ruth Ann said, expert have said he has frontal dementia symptoms existed during the first term. I believe that. I do believe that. Um, Teresa said a lot of trace elements and rare earth elements. He's after those. I believe that too. Venezuela has those as well as this heavy, thick crude. I don't think it's about the oil either. I think it's more about the trace elements. But I also think, remember how he talked about Africa being shithole countries? Well, Africa has the most good trace elements, and so does Afghanistan. Well, he made the deal. Biden gets blamed for the withdrawal from Afghanistan because people forget Taco negotiated that withdrawal. He negotiated it for May. We postponed it, but that was Taco's deal. Well, now we've left Afghanistan to China. We left Africa to China. When we stopped USAID and feeding people, China said, oh, we'll do it. So China is buying food from other countries and propping them up and then sending it as aid and getting the rare earth minerals. That's how important USAID was. That's how stupid Taco is. Lord, I think an old Mamaw from southeastern Ohio could do a better job. That frickin' fool. I at least know history. Yes, Lorna, he thinks he's implementing the Monroe Doctrine, which says that we will control our hemisphere and keep communism out of our hemisphere. Well, when people get hungry, they want to eat. Yes, Maduro will be, Judy says, Maduro will be tried and convicted, and then he will offer bribes. Trump will pardon him, and voila, I think you got the nail on the head. Taco just wants part of that drug money. He wants cut in on the deal. And I don't think anybody that cuts him in on the deal has to worry about being arrested. Natalie says to watch the documentary Bad Faith. Okay, y'all, it's been an hour. Thank you for having coffee with Mamaw. And remember to check out my merch site. Artsy Aubrey's going to be putting up some new stuff for the spring. The shirt that I have on right now, you can see my little logo there. On the back it reads, when Mamaw says, bless your heart, it is not a compliment. Same thing that my cup reads, if y'all can see that. So, I'm not going to say my next live that I'm announcing, of course, is Taco Tuesday. Those are always at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays. But what's going on, instead of doing where I pre-record and then edit and then post these little shorts, I'll probably be hopping on and doing a lot more lives. So if you want to set to where you get notified if Mamaw goes lives, you can go ahead and do that. I ask you all to subscribe. Please push out my content and help me grow this. We're still kind of hitting stagnant right now. The more followers we have, the more clout that we have when it comes up to these midterms next year, this coming year. Well, 2026, we're here. So in order for the porch sitters to really be able to get out there and do something and achieve something. So if you're on another site that you like watching, or someone else who does podcasts, if you would put my link in there to watch Mamaw's Porch and Politics, to follow, I appreciate it. Like, follow, and share. Those of you who are subscribers, the links I'll give you will be over to YouTube. You can also like, follow, and share there. That's a really growing platform. I'm also on Substack, and it's growing. And then I also do drops on Blue Sky and TikTok. I'm not putting much emphasis on TikTok anymore. I know those of us who really like it, and I'll tell you why. The Ellisons now officially own the American version of TikTok. Um, and I refuse to get on X because I'm not going to enrich Elon Musk. And so TikTok will have to see what the Ellisons do. I ask all of you to continue your boycott of CBS because, man, are they hurting. And they're even getting on Facebook and other online platforms and begging people to come back. Don't do it. Screw them. They want to bend the knee and turn that into Fox Light, then let them get Fox viewers. I'll not have it. All right, Lisa, you have a beautiful Sunday too, as well as all of you. Stay salty. Keep using your outside voices. And please, please, please keep calling your congressmen and senators. And when we're done, in the comments to this podcast, I will again post the little script and the phone number, but I've already posted it on my Facebook page. I love y'all. Bye-bye.